Join me as we talk all things true crime.
Made contact and shattered.
Delivery to a missing 4-year-old. The parents have called in and advised that the mother had went for a walk, came home, now they can't find her, they've been dealing for her.
Turn it over to another agency. Let's get some help.
Where are your kids? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say? You're over here in Hawaii? Chad, where are Lori's kids?
4 were stabbed multiple times and were likely asleep during the attack. Some had defensive wounds.
Most of them had just like one that was the lethal stab wound.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you all. Hello to my moderators. I see a lot of you here. Karen, Adrian, Florida Bass Fishing, Rebecca Hooper, thanks for being here. And thank you to all my members. If you haven't liked and subscribed, please do so. And just let me know, Shay or any other moderator, anyone, if the sound sounds okay. I do have some weed whackers with the townhouse landscapers today, but hopefully we can work around that. And I do have some pre-recorded stuff that I put together for you guys and to play those clips. And then I want to do the police interview, just a refresh of somebody who was friends with Chad and Lori. Thank you. Everyone says that the sound is good. Okay. Her name was Serena Sharp, and apparently she was friends with Chad and Lori, and it's an old police interview, but I figured once we go through the highlights and the recap of last week in the trial, then we can go through my freestyle notes like we've been doing, and then we'll just play the police interview while we go over the notes and just chat. So that is the plan for today. So what I have is, highlights and important vital testimonies that I've cut out and edited that came out last week in court. And in between that, I've been able to take out the long pauses in between the questions and shuffling of papers. Even people in the courtroom who have coughed, I've been able to edit out those noises too. So hopefully this is more streamlined and just straight to the point in the highlights, and we can just go through them together. There will be visuals that I've put up on the screen, and it'll be Lori before the murders and then Lori after, and she's just placed side by side. So I just wanted to highlight those visuals just to kind of look at Lori, how did things get to be the way they are in her life? So we'll hear from her sister and all that. So let's just get into it. We'll start off with the highlights. It'll transition to some recap clips from the case, just in general and overall. Some of them were from, we've already heard before, but it's just a refresh on facts pretty much. And then we'll just freestyle and talk through the notes. So thanks for being here, guys. Let's just get right into it. Hey, welcome to ATS News. We are relying heavily on reporters who are in the courtroom and tweets that are coming out in real time, some of which stated this week that when jurors were shown photos of the autopsy, some of them actually vomited while they were viewing the photos, and others were crying. The photos were so graphic that the court didn't show the whole audience of photos, they simply showed just the jury. Tammy Daybell's sister went up on the stand, and this is what she had to say.
Yes, we talked every day and saw each other every day. And we did everything together with our children.
Do you recall when Tammy started dating Chad Daybell?
Yeah, I do.
Did you know him from before?
Yes, his family lives in our hometown, and so I went to school with his brothers. He was older than me. He was the same age as my oldest brother, so he was not one that I hung around with, but I knew him.
Did you like Chad when she started dating him?
Yeah, he was a really nice guy.
Did you feel like he treated Tammy well?
Yeah, he did.
Then they ultimately ended up married?
Yeah.
And throughout their marriage, did you maintain contact with Chad and Tammy?
Yes, we were very close.
Was Chad in fact friends with your husband?
Yes.
Prior to Tammy moving to Idaho, how close did she live to you?
We were 2 blocks away from each other.
How often did you see her?
Every day.
911, where's your emergency?
We're at 202 North, 1900 East.
What's going on?
We just found my mom. She's on the ground frozen, or she's stiff, and I don't know.
Are you in Madison County or Fremont County?
I'm Chad, the husband. She's clearly dead.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay. Okay, are you in Rexburg or... Because your address shows Rexburg address, but you're in Fremont County?
Mile past.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, she's frozen.
Okay, can I get your name?
Chaddaybell. Oh, man.
Okay, Chad, I'm going to get somebody up to you right now, okay?
Yeah, the corner where the blinking yellow light is, the red house.
Yes, sir. Red house on the corner.
Yes.
Blinking yellow light.
Right.
Okay. We'll get somebody up to you, okay? I'm so sorry.
Okay.
If you need anything else, you call me back, okay?
Okay.
Okay, bye-bye.
How did you find out about your sister's passing?
Chad called me the morning that she passed away. He told me that she had been really sick and that she had been coughing all night, and she had gotten up and with a coughing fit around midnight, 1 o'clock, and had gone back to sleep. And he was awakened by her that morning when she rolled out of bed dead.
Did that make any sense to you?
No, because I had just seen her 2 weeks previous to that, and she hadn't been she wasn't that sick at all. She was very healthy.
Did she indicate to you any activities that she was participating in?
Yeah, she was in a clogging class, and she was showing us some of her clogging moves, but she was also preparing to run a smaller race in their town. So she was trying to stay fit and healthy.
And how old was she?
She wasn't 50 yet. We were going to get ready to celebrate her 50th birthday.
When she came to visit in October, was that a normal visit?
No, it was out of the blue.
Did anyone come with her?
No, she came by herself, and that was unusual because Tammy didn't like to travel alone.
Did she tell you why she came down to visit?
Chad told her that she needed to come visit her family.
Was she able to see all of the siblings?
No, it was me and my mom and dad.
Did Tammy ever indicate to you that she had suspicion that Chad was having an affair?
No, she never said anything about it. If she did have any inkling, I think he probably brushed it away.
Did you notice any change in Chad and Tammy's relationship?
Yes, they stayed with us the first week in June of 2019, and something seemed off. They were very awkward at our house, and Chad wouldn't converse with my husband like they normally do. It just seemed really strange, and we weren't sure what was going on.
Were there any other instances where things seemed a little off?
Yes, in my birthday in July, Tammy showed up at my front door to give me my birthday present. I didn't even know they were in town, and he stayed in the car the whole time with it running. So she literally stood in my house for 5 minutes to talk, and then they just left. And he didn't even bother to come in and say anything. It was really weird.
And that was of 2019?
Yes.
Had you and Chad had any kind of a falling out?
No.
Remember, Tammy Daybell died in October. This text message was sent from Lori to Chad in August 2019. It reads, "You should give all your love and your attention to your wife and family. I'm just a distraction. Go have fun with your family. I really do want you to. I just can't be in the way anymore. If things change, we can talk, but we have nothing until things change anyway." So just reading this text message between Lori and Chad, I mean, it sounds very much like manipulation from Lori's point to Chad. I don't know how you guys took it, but Lori or Tammy's sister also went on to say that, about Tammy, she was an introvert. She was very caring though and liked helping other people, but she didn't do well with change. And the whole reason why they moved to Idaho was simply because Chad wanted to. And she also said that animals really loved Tammy, and she was just a very sweet and kind woman. This text message also reminded me of those, for anyone who's followed the Watts case, there's, you know, record of the mistress in that case saying something very similar to Chris, like, I want you to go have fun with Shanann and your family and spend time with your family. That's really what I want. It just was very eerily similar to this text message too, in my opinion.
Fremont County Sheriff's Office. Hi, I need to report something. Okay, go ahead. What's the address? Okay, at 202 North, 1900 East. The corner with the blinking yellow light on Salem Highway. Is it a suspicious person? Yes. Okay, what was he wearing? He was all dressed in black and he had a ski mask on.
So he's dressed in black and he has a ski mask on. And it just made me think also, a few weeks ago, we went through the items that they collected from the search warrant, including guns, with silencers attached to it, etc. And then masks were also listed. And then like a Halloween mask also. So to me, it's like, I'm curious if these are the same masks. Either way, it's just very much obvious that this was set up by Alex, Lori, and Chad. And when you hear this 911 call, I find it interesting that, Chad was home at the time, because she says something about she went to go get her husband. And it's like, it just is crazy to me. Like, Alex runs around to the back after he isn't able to fire it or whatever. The other thing that I found interesting in this 911 call, this is the second one. The first one was made by her son-in-law, and he says the same thing, ski mask. And then she follows it up with this call just to make sure that there is record of it. And she says something about her thinking that it was a paintball gun. And I was just so confused because, like, why would she have thought that? And then I thought, well, I wonder if it had a silencer on it. And I wonder if in her mind, looking at it for a second, like, is that a paintball gun? Because when a gun has like a silencer attached to it, it obviously looks different. So I'm wondering if maybe that's what was presented in front of her and she was just confused on. I think she's totally in shock and just very confused. There's no other word for it.
And he said the blinking light now is where you saw him? No, he's gone now, because I pulled up into our driveway, and I didn't step out of the back seat of my car, and suddenly he was there, and he had a paintball gun, and he was aiming, and like he was going to shoot at me, and I kept asking him what he was doing, because I could tell it was a paintball thing, and then he just kept doing it, so I yelled for my husband, and then he took off running around the back of my house. Okay, give me just 1 minute, stay on the line with me. In what direction he was going? He went behind my house, and it's so dark out here, and I just went in the house and got my husband and son, and then they went out and looked, and he was long gone by then. Okay. So he was on.
And isn't it interesting? She says she went to get her son and husband, and they went out to look, but he was long gone by then. And it makes me wonder, was he really long gone by then? Or did Chad just let him get away? Like, oh yeah, I didn't see anything. It's just crazy to imagine this whole orchestration going on and Chad just acting like, oh, everything's, he's just acting. They're just all actors. And when we talk about, the motives here, the state has presented the motives of sex, power, and money. The power aspect, just think about all the phone calls that Lori and Chad have made, even minor ones, calling the funeral home, calling the life insurance place, duping everyone in their cult, in their inner circle. And just the fact that, they've gotten they fooled so many people even just via the phone. And so I feel like they just kept thinking like, oh, wow, that funeral home really bought what I was saying. Or, wow, this life insurance company didn't even catch on that, blah, blah, blah. Like, it just seemed like that had a lot to do with, them feeling powerful and like, oh, wow, I can get away with anything. It was just literally like they just were thinking that they were just getting away with murder pretty much.
On the north side of my house is where he went to get away. Okay. He didn't say anything, or he just kept acting like he was holding the gun like he was, had a rifle and just shooting at me, so. But nothing.
Another reason why I think she's just completely in shock and confused is because she stated, I thought it was a paintball gun, and now she's calling it a rifle. So that's why I'm like, how do you get confused with those? Like, they're nothing similar. Like, a paintball gun is, pretty obvious that it's not like real. So here she's saying rifle, and then like earlier said paintball gun. So that's why I'm like, was there a silencer attached to this? And we also heard through the search warrant information that there actually was like a rifle that had been like rigged pretty much with a silencer attached to it. Like, it wasn't manufactured that way. So it's just interesting to me. And sometimes when you add attachments to guns or something like that, things can get jammed. So it makes me wonder, was there some sort of malfunction with something being jammed?
It came out of the gun either, so I don't think it was loaded. Okay, and what is your name? My name.
And yeah, Mama, paintball guns are specifically colored and made to look not like a real gun. Like, you can't have a paintball gun or a BB gun or any sort of like offshoot gun that doesn't have like a bright orange cap on it or something bright on it to signify that it is fake and not real. So that's why I'm like, how did she think it was a paintball gun? And then also calling it a rifle. Perhaps there was a silencer attached.
Tammy Daybell.
I really do think that Tammy Daybell was in complete shock and just confusion when she was being shot at by Alex Cox. Lori's sister, Summer, also testified, and some of what she had to say was very interesting.
How long did you live in California?
I think until I was about 17 or 18.
Okay. So you and Lori would have been adults by the time that you moved away from California?
Yes.
So would you describe, how would you describe your relationship with Lori growing up?
I feel like we had a close relationship. We had a lot of similar interests and friends in common, and we did a lot of activities together.
Okay. Go to schools together?
Yes.
Go to church together?
Yes.
How would you describe your family life?
I think we had a good family. I mean, we had problems, but we also had a lot of fun.
Do you remember when Lori, her first marriage?
Yes.
Do you remember how old she was?
It was right out of high school, so I think 18.
So she was 18 and you were 16 when that happened?
Yeah. And
did that marriage last long?
No.
Do you remember her second marriage?
Yes.
And who was that to?
William LaJoya.
And is that the father of Colby, who we met here last week?
Yes.
Okay. And did that marriage last long?
Longer than the first, but not that long.
Okay. And then did Lori get married again?
Yes.
And who was her third husband?
Joseph Ryan.
And is Joseph Ryan the father of Tylee Ryan?
Yes.
And during this time of these relationships that Lori was having, did you stay close with Lori?
Off and on.
And did you try to maintain good contact with Lori?
Yes, but we lived in 2 different states, so it was more challenging.
Do you recall when Lori separated from Joe Ryan?
Yes.
And And did Lori protect Colby and Tylee from Joe Ryan?
Yes.
I don't know what to say, Lori. I mean, you know how much I love you and Alex. It's sick to my stomach. I didn't see anything when you never let anything happen to the kids and just let them be thrown away like garbage. I can't take it that you would let this. It's too painful. And you think I let that happen? Yes, I do. That's nice. Is there another explanation? I'm willing to hear it. I don't want to think it. Absolutely, but I can't talk about it. You went off to Hawaii and were dancing on the beach while your kids are in the ground?
And so when you talk on this phone call with your sister Lori, you would have never done anything to harm your children. Is that the way you felt?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's because of seeing her raise Colby and Tylee and JJ.
Yes.
Did you also get to know Charles Vallow?
Yes.
If you can briefly tell us about the relationship between Charles and Lori.
I think they had a great relationship in the beginning, and they seemed very compatible, and they seemed very happy.
And they adopted JJ?
Yes.
And were you involved in your sister's life when that happened?
Yes.
Were you involved in your sister's life when Lori and Charles separated?
Yes.
Were you aware that Charles had filed for divorce?
I'm not sure if I knew that until it came out in the media, because I don't think she was ever served.
Okay. And then they, as far as you knew, they had reconciled?
Yes.
Summer then goes on to say that she stayed in contact with Lori even when JJ and Charles moved to Texas. She also talked about how Alex and Lori shared with her certain beliefs that they had, but not the extreme beliefs like how Lori thought she was a goddess or the zombie concept. She never thought any of their beliefs would have had any dangerous effects on anybody around them. I also find it very interesting that Lori only shared some of the beliefs that she had with Summer, and she left out the ultra extreme beliefs and the narrative that she was spinning to her cult at the time, including, her thinking that she was a goddess and the zombies. Even JJ's dog was said to have been a zombie. So if Lori truly believed everything that she was telling the cult, why did she keep certain beliefs from her sister Summer?
Did she tell you in late 2018, 2019 about zombies was the question?
I don't recall her ever telling me about zombies, that word. I don't remember her ever using that terminology.
Okay. Did she talk to you about her ability to cast out evil spirits?
I believe so.
Did she tell you about light and dark scales?
Yes.
And is that something that you had heard before that time period?
Never.
Did she tell you that she...
So before this time period of when she met Chad, Lori never talked about light and dark scales. She didn't express the zombie concept or the concept that she was a goddess. And it just is noteworthy to me. Like I said, if she truly believed these thoughts and feelings and beliefs and they were, hardcore into her soul, why would she keep certain beliefs away from Summer? And to me, it's just another example of her consciousness of, she knew exactly what was going on, and in a sense that, she'll spill some of the secrets and stuff that she's doing in her private life with her sister, but some of it she just can't share with her. And it's like, is it because, saying that your child is a zombie is just out of, just crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. It's just noteworthy to me that she didn't express everything. So it's like, did she really even believe it? And it goes back to the whole prosecution saying that this is about money too, the children's money for their Social Security. And again, she thought she was getting that money from Charles's death. She thought she was getting a bunch of life insurance money. Chad had even bragged about it. His new wife was hot and rich. Well, that never happened. So that money fell through. And it's just interesting to me that it really does seem like it's what the state is painting. You know, she knew enough to know that certain things that she was doing and preaching and spinning were absolutely wrong. That's why she didn't share it all with Summer, her sister. And good morning, CDT. It's good to have you and everyone who's here chatting in chat and just watching. Thank you so much. And thank you, Marianne, for becoming a new member. It's so great to have you on our team. Does anyone know? I saw a question in chat. I thought it was a good question. Did they ever get pings from Alex's phone around Chad's property the day that Tammy was shot at? I don't want to say yes because I'm not 100%, but I know that they have his pings on that property, like that when the children were gone missing and stuff. But I don't know anything about the fake the shooting. So let me know, and those on replay, let me know as well.
She was a goddess.
I don't recall if she used that terminology.
Did she tell you that she was a leader of the 144,000?
No.
Did she tell you that there?
And that's just another example. You know, her and Chad believed that they were going to lead the 144,000. You know, they had told their cult members that was a way for them to get trust in people and have people faithfully follow them. So why, if she truly believed that, and remember, they're also saying that she's delusional, etc. But she didn't tell her sister that. Wouldn't she want her sister to be a part of the 144,000 that she could lead, etc.? It's just like she clearly didn't believe everything that they were telling the cult, in my opinion. It just seems more and more like if she was actually in this huge delusional state and this and that, then why wouldn't she just freely tell Summer every detail instead of keeping some out? She didn't believe in the light and dark scales before meeting Chad. Well, then she met Chad and then she shared that with Summer. Well, she didn't share everything else that they were preaching and teaching. So it's like, obviously you knew that those other beliefs that you were thinking were dead wrong, like completely, in my opinion.
There was a new church called the Church of the Firstborn.
I don't recall her ever telling me that specifically.
Were you concerned about your sister with her new beliefs?
I don't know that I was concerned about safety of anybody. I just was concerned. I mean, of course I care about my sister, but I didn't really know what to think about it. Okay. So I don't know if concerned is the right word.
Okay, fair enough. How was your relationship with Alex?
I was close with Alex.
Now, can you tell the jury what he was like?
Well, he was my big brother, and sometimes he was hilarious and fun, and sometimes he was kind of crude or obnoxious in a way, but most of the time we got along really well, and he was at my house most weekends playing games with my kids.
And did he have children of his own?
No.
Did he suffer a brain injury as a teenager?
Yes.
And what was that, from a car accident?
Yes.
And did that brain injury in that car accident, did that affect him?
I believe it did.
Was he different after that car accident than he was before?
He seemed almost stuck in making like teenage decisions. He got in his car accident at 16, and he kind of made decisions like a 16-year-old most of his life.
Now, I find that noteworthy, not only because it would show how impressionable that his mind could be. I mean, think about any 16-year-old male or female that you guys know. They're very impressionable. They want something that makes them feel like they're part of something, big, and just a place to call, I don't know, their own little group, So he was very much, I think, in desperate need of feeling like he fit in somewhere, even in his later life. His mental state being 16 also explains how a few weeks ago we listened to the phone call that his ex-wife, not Zulema, but another one, had made to the police station about how when they were together, all this stuff. It was a crazy phone call. You guys should check it out. I think it's a few live streams. I have a Lorivallow trial playlist that has a lot of different stuff in it, but his ex-wife had talked about how they had to abruptly move one time because the police were going to be after him for messing with an underage girl, and it was the father had found out. So to me, this sort of like goes with that in a way. Like, he thought he was 16, so he didn't see anything wrong with the fact that she was underage and he was an adult at that point. Again, this is just my theory. I'm not excusing that, obviously, but I'm trying to think like, oh, well, that could also explain why that ended up happening. And then him having to spend time in jail for getting in a fight with Lori's other ex-husband, not Charles, explains that, his rational thinking, just like anybody who hasn't had their full frontal cortex formed at that point at 16, it's not fully formed. So it makes me think his decision making was just not that great and just not an adult level. So I think that it's very interesting that he was in this car accident. We didn't know that at all before the trial. At least I didn't. And what else? Something about Alex too. Let me just keep playing. But either way, I just found that was all noteworthy.
So he was, that's what you observed, is that he was stuck as a teenager.
In his decision making, yes.
Do you stay in touch with Colby Ryan?
Yes.
And Colby had previously stated, my mom spent her whole life protecting us kids. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Colby also stated after she met Chad Daybell, she changed. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Dr. Garth Warren was a forensic pathologist that did the autopsy for JJ and Tylee. Here's what he had to say.
What did you find in the toxicology report?
In the toxicology report, there were low levels of ethanol, so alcohol. There was a drug called GHB, gamma hydroxybutyric acid.
Now I'm going to pause it here while he explains what GHB is. And for those who have already seen this, start letting me know in chat or comment down below. Do you think that this is the drug GHB, or do you think it's the natural forming GHB that he's will go on to say that I believe your liver can produce post-mortem? Again, we're just guessing, but everything that we know about the crimes, what are you thinking? It seems very much like maybe they did drug him beforehand. Maybe the way that Tylee was disposed of and all that was just too much, so they needed to drug this one. Or is it natural forming?
There was also a substance called theobromine, and I believe there's also caffeine.
And GHB, what is that?
So GHB, gamma hydroxybutyric acid, it's a drug, or one, it can be a drug, and it can be used for medicinal purposes or recreationally. For medicinal purposes, sometimes it can be used for narcolepsy. I think at one point in time it was used as a possible anesthetic or for anesthesiology. Recreationally, it's often referred to as liquid ecstasy. Some refer it to as a date rape drug. So what it does, it acts as a depressant on the central nervous system. It can give you a sense of euphoria. It can give you a sense of calming, relaxation. It can increase libido. It can cause amnesia as well, which essentially would be loss of memory.
So was this the drug that was used on JJ possibly to kind of justify it, make it seem better in Lori's mind? Like, okay, he went peacefully. They gave him a drug. I don't know. My mind goes everywhere. It makes me think like, but at the same time, Joseph Scott Morgan, again, he wasn't the pathologist or the doctor that, conducted the autopsy, but he is a forensic expert. And obviously he's has good insight. He had said something like, you know, JJ suffered. This was very much a brutal death for him. There were evidence that he had fought back. They thought that maybe some of the scrapes that were found around his neck were from JJ just trying to take the bag off from around his neck. They found stuff underneath his fingernails to signify that he was fighting. So, you know, was he drugged? You would think that maybe they would have waited till that all. But at the same time, just because you're on this drug doesn't mean you're not going to gasp for air, right? So it's hard to say, but it definitely wasn't a peaceful way to go.
During the time that the substance is on board. In addition, GHB is naturally found in the human body. It is predominantly in the central nervous system. And again, like I stated, it acts as a depressant, and it also can be found in lower amounts in the peripheral tissues.
How would you characterize the amount of GHB found in J.J. Vallow?
The best way to describe it is inconclusive. So GHB was found. So we know through literature, the medical literature, that GHB can be found in tissues, including liver, post-mortem. So there's really no way for me to tell for sure whether this is just a naturally occurring product in the body that was there, or if JJ was given GHB.
Based on that particular autopsy and based on...
So according to him, it's inconclusive, just another mystery that we'll never know. And in fact, we'd never even had known this information because obviously it didn't come out until they did the toxicology. So it's just sort of an added aspect to the case that now we just have to wonder, like, which way did it go? And, you know, some people have theories that it was, he was drugged. Other people have theories like, no. So it's just one of those things that now we're just never going to know, but we do know that it was found in his system because of the toxicology. And yeah, Marshall Dove, I'm right there with you. She said, I am still lost how and where Tylee was killed, but it was just awful. Yeah. And he's going to go into that a little bit too after this.
On your education, training, and experience, have you formed an expert opinion concerning the cause of death of J.J. Vallow?
I have. I determined the cause of death to be asphyxia by plastic bag over the head and duct tape covering the mouth. And then there's another segment that's other significant conditions. I put bound with duct tape, bruising of the arms, and abrasion to the neck.
Lori's defense attempts to cross-examine the doctor at this moment.
Okay. And did you find any evidence of microplastics or something that might be consistent with someone being smothered with a plastic bag?
Well, I wouldn't expect to find that, but no, we didn't find anything.
Okay, so how is it that you're coming to the conclusion that this person was smothered with a plastic bag?
Right. So, going back, so JJ was found with a plastic bag over his head. That was duct taped tightly. He was bound. There was evidence of a struggle, and there's no other explanation of why he was dead.
So as a rule out?
I wouldn't consider a rule out because there's a plastic bag over his head.
Okay, but that plastic bag could have been put over his head post-mortem, right?
I guess that's possible.
Okay. But you're saying that your conclusion is that it was done ante-mortem prior to his death?
Correct.
And that's based on nothing concrete, just your theory of the way you think the crime may have happened?
No. I think essentially that's how an autopsy and all the tests, that's why you do all of those things. So you have a person with a plastic bag over their head and is bound, and you do all the tests and you do the autopsy and you find zero reason for them to be dead, then it's reasonable to conclude that that was the cause of death.
Okay, but let's back up a little bit. When I talked about swabbing the sinuses or swabbing the nasal cavity, you didn't do that?
I've never heard anybody doing that in this type of situation.
Okay, what type of situation are you talking about?
Bag over the head.
Okay, so when someone has a bag over their head and and I'm just going off of things I've seen in movies and whatnot, it seems
That's
like...
scary.
That's scary to you?
Yeah, but you're going off movies.
Okay. So, well, you're going off of
my knowledge.
Knowledge, okay. So when someone puts a bag over their head and they're trying to breathe in air, is that correct?
Yes.
How this happens?
Yes.
Okay. Does anything that's inside that bag, does it generally go inside the nasal cavity or inside the mouth and down the throat?
I've never heard of that.
That's not how it works?
No, not with the plastic bag.
Tell me how it works.
Essentially, the bag is put over your head and you can't breathe, and then you go unconscious and you die.
Okay. So nothing goes into the nasal cavity?
I don't know why it would.
What are you breathing in?
Air.
From where?
Nowhere. That's why you die.
From inside the plastic bag?
Correct.
Okay. So anything that may have been inside that plastic bag that was close to the mouth or nose would have gone inside the mouth or nose?
Not necessarily,
okay.
No.
All right. I guess we'll just have to disagree on that.
Now, I'm reading everyone's comments in chat. Why would you base anything on a movie, sir? It's science. Everyone's just fed up with this lawyer. He's reaching, etc. And I totally agree. It was just the weirdest, most cringe interaction, and there was more to it too. I cut off, like, I only showed like some of it. There's other parts that were just like, okay, this back and forth of, but he's just doing his job. I really wonder if all that was, if Lori thought like, yes, we're winning this, like, who knows what she's thinking? Like, she could have thought like, yeah, now the jury knows. Like, we just don't know what's going on in her mind because she's just cuckoo. And good morning, Crime Curious. Thanks for being here. And I saw Alex Erickson and others joining. It's good to see you guys.
He determined Tylee's cause of death to be homicide by unspecified means, and then he went on to explain what exactly that means.
The cause of death was by homicide, but I just can't pinpoint exactly what that was. Most homicides, you can say something like a gunshot wound to the head when the body's intact, or a stab wound to the heart. I can't do that in this case. And it should be noted that I guess the term homicide by unspecified means, it's widely used in the forensic pathology world.
Special Agent Steve Daniels from the FBI also took the stand, and here's what he had to say about the burial grounds where JJ and Tylee were found on Chad Daybell's property. He gave in detail the area that was found around JJ's grave.
What's interesting now is just the precise way that these rocks are laid out. You can start to see the cut roots around this grave, especially the bigger roots. So somebody's taken time and effort to cut through these roots.
Let's listen to what a former
Okay, before we listen in on this former CIA FBI agent, Tracy Walder, I do want to just speak real quick about how the pathologist, and that's the other thing is, not only do we have the mystery of why GHB, aka the date rape drug, was found in his system, but now we have the mystery of like, how exactly did Tylee pass? They just don't know. Burn. They talked about her hip bones and they had these markings on them, and it was pretty much, they figured it was from some, either the pickaxe or shovel or something poking at her remains, like while it was being burned. It's just absolutely horrendous. And good morning, Roxanne. It's good to see you. And thank you for all your support.
CIA and FBI agent has to say about the crime scene and decomposition and what it will tell the jury.
You know, it's interesting in terms of a decomposed body. The most difficult is actually when a body has been burned. That's when it becomes difficult to really determine a cause of death. And that's why I think they're having a hard time determining Tylee's cause of death, which is obviously terrible. In terms of decomposing, it's not that difficult. In the case of JJ, you know, he was found with the duct tape in the bag around his head, so it was pretty clear what he had died of. But no, with decomposing bodies, it's not all that difficult. It's when they're burned that becomes more difficult. So in terms of the decomposition, what that's really going to go towards is the time of death, and then that really calls into conflict this phone call that we heard earlier regarding Lorivallow and her sister when she was in jail. And her sister was talking to her about how she could possibly be on the beach, taking photos, celebrating her wedding, when her children, you know, were in the ground. And Lorivallow goes to say, well, that was months later. And that's key there. And that will be placed in comparison with their time of death. And what that will go to show is that Lorivallow knew her children were no longer with them at that point. And I think that's going to be really key. And I would suspect they're going to juxtapose those two things against each other.
I want to revisit this interview from early on when the children were still missing, before anyone knew anything about where they were buried or anything like that. This is the interview with Lori's sister Summer and her mother, well before the kids were ever discovered in Chad's backyard.
They don't believe Lori had anything to do with her late husband Charles Vallow's death.
Now, I know you guys have seen some of this interview. Of course, I've re-edited it with different images and took some extra fluff out, but pretty much they just, at this point, there was nothing in their minds that ever would make them think that Lori would have anything to do with harming the children. The children are not even found yet at this moment. That this is when the media hype and everything is all about, you know, where are the kids? What are they doing with them? Blah, blah, blah. So this is so long ago. I think the video that I pulled this from was like 2 years old. So to go back after we listened to Summer's testimony earlier in the stream, in case anyone missed it, go back and listen to that. And obviously there's that phone call that erupted between them. When she was in jail, we enhanced that earlier in the stream. If you want to hear that, you know, it's just to know and hear everything that we've heard in the trial, and then to go back and see this video of them on national news, just sticking up for Lori and just being totally in shock and confusion. Like, no, there's no way. Even when they're asked about a cult aspect, they're just like, no, there's no way. It's just absolutely crazy to see this interview. Like when I was editing it, I was like, oh my gosh, like to be where we are right now and to see this, it was just crazy to me. And thank you so much, Liamsban 007. I really appreciate you.
Lori's brother Alex shot and killed him last July and said it was self-defense. Alex himself died mysteriously in December.
And this is before they even really knew much about Tammy's cause of death too. So this is just so early on to go back and see the story before some of the answers that we have now. And thank you so much, Karen. I appreciate you too.
They also don't think Lori had any role in the death of her new husband, Chad Daybell's former wife. She died in her sleep in October.
Are you defending Lori because she's your daughter and she's your sister? Or are you defending her because you really think that she did nothing wrong?
We really think that she did nothing wrong. She's had some bad judgment. She's married a few men that we didn't care for.
So, you know, I'm sorry, I have to pause it real quick. Just her, at this moment, they will admit that her love life has not been the best. And if we're going to think about, you know, what led Lori to follow Chad, like of all guys, like just look at him. I mean, he's the definition of bland. Like, why would you leave Charles or, betray trust of Charles, who worshiped the ground you walked on. I mean, you hear Charles in that body cam footage. I love her. I want her to get help. You know, no matter what she was saying that she wanted him gone at that point, and he was still telling the law enforcement, like, I love her, you know? So what made Lori go from that to Chad, you know? And it's just this aspect of her that even friends had said she would tell us that she was so in fear of the end of the world that she wanted to drive off the road with her kids in the car, you know? So there was something in Lori that was extreme even before she met Chad. And Charles even says, like, she just increasingly got more and more extreme in her beliefs. So something that Chad was saying and doing in his books and his seminars, you know, the prepper leader, that was resonating in Lori's sick mind at that moment. And he became, and we talked about before, her next conquest. And for some reason, something in Chad was just what Lori needed and wanted. And you can see here, you know, bringing it back, the mother and sister have said she's married and been with men that we just did not care for. She'll be the first to say that she's made mistakes in her love life, blah, blah, blah. It all comes back to her choice in men, it seems, you know? And it's like she's, at some point, she lost it when she was in her marriage with Charles. Like, it got to another level of, you know, because there's such thing as love addiction. It's when people are just in love with like the early stages of relationships, etc. To me, Lori seemed very much like a man eater. Nothing was ever good enough for her. Nobody was ever good enough. And for some reason, Charles, even though he converted from being Catholic to LDS for her and all that, he just wasn't enough for her, like on a spiritual level, on some sort of sick mental level for her. He just was not meeting her mental state. And we know that she's clearly mentally ill. So she was just in this whole fantasy that the world was going to end. And for some reason, she thought Chad was going to get her through all that. It's just crazy. Yeah, and that's true, Betty. She said there's some women that would absolutely choose a man over their children. And remember, I mean, not that people can't have emotional attachments to adopted children, but JJ was not her biological child. So I'm just throwing that out there. And we heard on the phone call with Colby, she said, I was there for them every day and no one else, and I did it day in and day out. It's like, that's what you're supposed to do. But it seemed like she had resentment towards having to do that. Well, too bad.
She'll be the first to say that she's made a lot of mistakes and she's paid high prices for those mistakes.
So what is the scenario that Tylee and JJ are still alive?
Well, to us, we believe they are because we know Lori. And we have seen her dedication.
Are they in a bunker somewhere? Are they with friends? Where do you think they are?
We don't know. We wish we knew. We don't know. But we also don't know what Lori has been through. She was being threatened. She was being followed.
Who was threatening her?
Well, Kay was threatening her.
And her brothers. They're very upset about Charles's death. There was a lot of threats made to Lori.
Do you think she's in a cult?
No.
No,
we don't.
But Lori is now married to Chad Daybell, an author of Doomsday novels with a cult-like following in the prepper world.
They look at Chad like he's some sort of messiah.
I don't know Chad very well. I've only met him one time. I've never heard anything about him self-proclaiming to be a prophet or anything else of that nature or trying to get people to follow him.
We can't see Lori blindly following anybody. Can you? No, we can't see it.
You don't think that Chad brainwashed her?
So they don't think that she would blindly follow anybody. They don't think that Chad brainwashed her. So then I ask you guys, and I'm not certain myself, but then was she the manipulator in the couple between her and Chad? Very early on, before this trial really got into it, I thought, like, you know what, Chad, I feel like I thought Lori was the manipulator, and then I thought Chad was the manipulator. Now I'm seeing this interview and I'm thinking, which is it again? I don't know. And good morning, everyone. And Tony, who has joined. So Sweetie Pie says, I think so. Diane says, I think they are both equal. Yeah, Lori is not in a cult. She is a cult, seems to me. Yeah, I agree.
No, he couldn't do it. It's not possible.
These two say they think Lori.
So he couldn't convince her. They're saying, like, no, there's no way, you know? So then how did it go from her family just thinking there's no way that anyone could convince her for her children to get hurt, blah, 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 to it going to that level? It's just crazy to me. And thank you so much, Adrienne. I really appreciate that super sticker. Yeah, I know. I feel bad for her family. Of course, we did state that this interview, they obviously feel totally different now. We heard it on the stand. We heard it in their phone call when Summer's putting pressure on her to explain it. Like, what is the other explanation? Ashley thinks that she was the manipulator. That text message to Chad that I read earlier in the chat, you know, it seems very much like she was almost giving him an ultimatum, maybe. I don't know. I'm still writing this trial out, and I'm very curious to see how Chad's trial goes.
Really believes she is protecting her children, but they say they wish she would bring them forward.
It's been devastating not to see Tylee and JJ in such a long time. We love them so much. And it's been devastating not to see Lori.
Is there any part of the dark recesses of your minds that say maybe she cracked and maybe this is not going to end up well?
We have gone through those scenarios probably 100 times.
If something has happened to those children, it is not by her doing. And it's not by her permission.
She couldn't crack enough to do harm to her children.
Isn't that just crazy too, the way that that ended? She couldn't crack enough to do harm to her children. And then we hear Charles on the body camera say, like, she lost it. And then we heard, I think, another friend interview, police interview, pretty much, I think it was April actually, and she said in an interview that she had just lost it. Like, they both are saying the same thing.
Some other interesting clips from the case and from everything that we've gathered thus far.
I want her to get help. Yeah. She's my wife. I love her to death. Something's going on. Okay. And if she wants me gone, fine. I'll do all that stuff. I just don't want her hurt. Okay. You know, I just don't want her hurt anybody else.
How does she pose a threat to your children? I don't know what she's going to do with them.
I'm Alex, and I'm going to be Looney Tunes.
I asked Al at one point, your brother, if I wanted to know, you know, like where he was, and he said I did not want to know, and that he could not be found. So what does that mean?
I don't know why he would say that, but it's the same story. Like, I don't even want Al to know. I don't want anybody to know, so that nobody has to be worried about it. I mean, nobody has to be questioned about it, so he can be safe.
And who said this to you? Is that what Lori said, that Tylee had to be free?
Correct.
Okay. Did she say where she was staying, where Tylee was actually staying?
When I tried to ask her what she meant by that, she lifted her hand and put it up to my face and said, "Don't ask."
I begged her to go to the doctor. Her heart was failing her. She was physically falling apart. There's no way, Logan, I should have ever come up with this.
3 weeks before Tammy dies, he said to me, and he was kind of in this frustrated voice, "My plan can't move forward until Tammy's dead."
They were saying that Tammy had become a zombie.
She believed in the end of the world and that everyone was going to die, and she was preparing for it. She would say things about the end of the world and about driving off a cliff with the kids. She worked in the primary, and she was so good with all the kids.
It just seems like she kind of lost it.
All right, so let me just refer to my notes while these visuals play, and then we'll switch it up and go to the police interview with a friend of Lori's and Chad's. Her name is Serena Sharp. It's been out for a while, this police interview, but I just want to revisit it while we just finish up and go through some notes. And good morning, House Huddle. It's good to see you. All right, so we're just looking through the notes about Tammy Daybell's sister, and it says, like any good sister, she did research on Lori to find out who was replacing her sister, Tammy. Chad told her Lori's husband died from a heart attack and they were both grieving. She looked up Charo's obituary and realized Chad lied. She asked Chad if they planned on raising children together. He told me no, there's no children, and that they were going to be empty nesters. So, unbeknownst to Chad, Tammy's sister is looking up Lori and everything that she can. And, Chad's over there telling her, no, there's no children and that they were going to be empty nesters. I mean, huge red flag. Tammy's sister also said you don't get married 4 weeks after you just buried your wife of almost 30 years. You just don't do that. And what are the children thinking, Chad's children? I remember, it's just, and all I can say is it would be totally traumatizing and shocking, I'm sure, for them to see their mother replaced so quickly. Tammy's sister said Tammy did not want to move to Idaho and that was Chad's idea and that they needed to move. Tammy worked as a special ed secretary. Chad was part of the cemetery grounds crew and dug graves the morning. And remember, this is obvious though. The special agent from FBI who we played his testimony when he spoke about the grave that JJ was found in. The person who dug that grave cut through roots from a tree. It was perfectly done and precise and just very professional. So, when we're talking about what roles did everyone play, I think it's safe to say that grave was dug by Chad. I don't know how you guys are feeling. So Chad called her the day that Tammy, I think the day after, I don't know. She said it earlier in the testimony, but basically that she had gotten up with a coughing fit around midnight and went back to sleep. And now we know that she was asphyxiated. So when they're talking about she's frozen, etc., whatever state that she was in, that's why she was frozen the way she was. So the forensic biologist for Idaho State Police said she received JJ Vallow's autopsy samples. She received teeth and plastics from the burial site. She received swabs from Lori's apartment and chain and pendant and 18 tools. She received duct tape from the hand, ankles, and mouth, and duct tape from the plastic bag that was wrapped around his head. Most of the tape and plastic had apparent blood and decomposition fluid present, all tested for blood, which was positive. She said there was blood all over everything besides the chain and the pendant. She did blood test the tools found on Chad's house. I found several presumptive blood positive stains on the tools, and on several of the tools I found what could be charred flesh. And as she's talking about this, which obviously is in reference to Tylee as well, which is Lori's biological daughter. In fact, she's pregnant in the photo on the screen with her. She had no reaction, apparently. We did report earlier in the stream that some of the jury was actually vomiting at some of the autopsy photos, and, people were crying. Lori apparently dabbed her eyes a few times. Let's see what else. So yeah, the shovel had matches of Tylee's DNA on it. An image of a pickaxe on the center of the pickaxe was dark with an oily texture. It had a dark, greasy ring around it. And she said there is an extremely high probability the DNA is Tylee's. The handle of the pickaxe also had Tylee's DNA. Now, guys, now that we're on the subject of things found, they found a piece of hair connected to duct tape that was in the body bag of JJ. Is that true? And that they're still waiting on... Did I dream that? help me out, guys. I'm sorry. Let me switch up the screen too, and we'll just watch this interview for a little bit while I go through some more notes. Are we still waiting on a hair test sample, or what, am I like literally dreaming? Because guys, I have nightmares about this case. I'm not even joking. It's just horrible. There's probably going to be an ad, so bear with me. And again, this is a former friend of Lori's and Chad, so I just want to revisit it.
Or Lori? Because was Lori and Chad together when you first met them?
Yes,
Okay.
but together as in they were in the same place.
And also, Melanie, Lori's sister, she's going to be a huge, huge witness on the stand. I believe she's probably going to go this week. What do you guys think? Okay, Diane, thank you. She said, you didn't dream that. I think there was something to do with the hair. Okay, I thought so. But whose hair is it? It was in the body bag under the duct tape on the outside of the bag around JJ's head. And they're still waiting on whose it is, or...
So I came here in November of 2019 for a Preparing of People conference. I'd never met anybody here except for Jason Mao at the time. And so Jason had come out to New England to do a big fireside, like.
If you think you have a
For us, for a bunch of youth, we had a multi-state thing for the youth, and he came and was our keynote speaker. And he said, you remind me of my friend Melanie. So he introduced me to Melanie over the phone, Gib, and I started speaking with her, and I was already aware of this conference and considering attending because I was up in Connecticut. And she's like, well, come stay with me. And I'm like, okay. I'd never met her before, but I knew Jason was speaking and I was interested in the subject. So I came and I thought I was staying with Melanie, and she took me to Lori's house. We actually stayed at Lori's house, and that's when I met Lori and Chad, who was also staying there at the same time.
And what day was that, or what month was that again?
Pretty sure I can double check the dates, but November 2019.
Okay, thanks so much, Jen Lou. She said, okay, so the state lab was backed up and Chad's defense wants it tested so it won't come out till this trial. Why was it not tested, before Lori's trial? Like, what is the delay or what's going on? Wouldn't you want that if you were Lori's defense? Like, I mean, unless it's Lori's hair. But while I have it paused, so it says an image on the big screen showing Tylee's pelvis bone from 2 different angles. She points out 5 areas of sharp impact on the bone. The general location of the sharp impact in the pelvic area is inconsistent with dismemberment. She did not see any sharp trauma on the vertebrae, but she can't know for sure because they were severely burned. Photos of the right hip bone. There are 6 areas of sharp alterations. The location of these sharp alterations is inconsistent with dismemberment. So the markings on her bones near the pelvis area, did not occur from when she was dismembered. It likely took place while she was in the fire and they're just poking at her. It, obviously takes... I think that's a common mistake in a lot of crimes. And I'm sure you guys know that as well. Like, you can't just burn a body and it turns to ash like when you get cremated. Like, that takes, I don't know, 4,000 degrees or something crazy that a bonfire just cannot reach, So people are just, criminals are obviously stupid and don't realize that. So it's probably why JJ's, everything looked so different between the 2 deaths of the children. The first one just was not smooth. Let's see what else in my notes. And thank you guys for being here. So this doctor, Angie Christensen, is the anthropologist. So she's the one that's commenting about the bones. She examined around 100 bones belonging to Tylee. When she received the remains, they were fragmented in nature, and a lot of them were burned. 3 bones had sharp edges that were likely impacted by a tool. There was 1 bone that had carnivore activity, like some sort of animal or mammal had chewed on it. Photo shows portions of Tylee's left and right femur. On the backside of these bones is where they found the carnivore activity. Angie points out thermal damage to the jawbone. She says there is blunt trauma, sharp trauma, and high velocity trauma. She identified sharp trauma on 3 of Tylee's bones, the left and right hip bone, and the back pelvis. Something with a small surface area caused trauma to these bones, Angie said. She is not sure what tool was used to cause the trauma. Photo then shows the sharp alterations on the bones. There were 5 areas of sharp trauma on the left hip bone, and they were not the result of the disease process. An external force was imposed on the bone. Typically, sharp trauma in dismemberment cases appear around the joints, she said. The images we are seeing are not consistent with dismemberment because they are not near the joints. The purpose of dismemberment is to break all the body into smaller pieces. In this case, all the sharp trauma areas are in the pelvic region. You can see evidence of the sharp trauma in some bones on both sides, meaning the instrument went all the way through. We now look at the CT scan that the doctor performed. She points out areas of sharp trauma on the bones in the pelvic region. Tylee Ryan's autopsy started on the same day as JJ. Her remains were received in 3 separate sealed bags. 2 of the bags were black body bags, and the third was a large brown paper bag that was sealed. So at least we know they put evidence in paper bags because that's more breathable than the plastic bag, and that's better for evidence retrieval and just containment of the products inside. There was no blood or urine to send for a toxicology, so they went to this skeletal and muscle area to send. I think they sent out, because when JJ was found, he was in the decomp state where there was no blood or anything like that in his body at that point. So there's no evidence that Tylee was alive when she was burned. Warren was able to find Tylee's heart connected to her right and left lung, 1 kidney and a few small segments of bowel, and portion of a liver and small fragments of brain matter. These organs had severe decomposition, significant burning artifacts. They were charred and shrunken. Presumably, the rest of the organs burned away and were never found.
Okay. When you were there, did you see anything going on between Lori and Chad that was out of the ordinary or affectionate or anything like that?
No, I actually took a walk with both of them on Sunday morning and didn't notice anything unusual, but I wasn't expecting anything unusual too. I mean, everybody there was brand new to me, so I didn't see anything unusual.
What was the conference at the house, or what did they talk about?
No, so there was a fireside at the house, like a morning meeting type thing for people to come to. I think that was on a Friday morning. But the conference itself was at the facility. I'm so sorry. Like, I came from Connecticut. I didn't know where I was. I just got a ride to different places, and I had never been here before, as an adult. So I was pretty overwhelmed with meeting everybody, and I just trusted we were at the conference. Yeah. Wherever the conference was held, that's where it was for the conference.
Yeah, and it's a long time, so I don't expect you to know all that stuff. How long were Lori and Chad kind of teaching the teachings that they were going on and for the conference? Or was there anything different that they were teaching that wasn't in the LDS faith.
Yes, definitely. So Lori and Chad didn't say anything to me until Sunday morning. Lori kind of pulled me aside and started saying a few things that were not like according to the LDS faith, that were outside kind of that purview.
Did she ever talk about zombies or
not at that time
or anything like that?
That came later.
Okay.
But she, like that morning is when she talked about like multiple probations and like coming to the earth multiple times. And
how did you feel about that?
How did I personally feel about that? Kind of mixed. So part of me wanted to believe it. Part of me has had like deja vu experiences, and I've had deja vu. And so for me, it kind of explained those kind of moments in my life. And I thought, well, maybe it's true. I kind of believe it. I did. I believed it. Mixed too, though, because I didn't know. I had just met Lori, so a little bit of hesitancy, but I did believe her.
Can I? Yeah. So was it Lori that was, from your understanding, was it Lori that was talking more about those things at this, or did you see or hear Chad saying the exact same things?
I didn't hear Chad say anything that weekend about that. Mm-hmm.
So it was mostly Lori.
It was only Lori to me. It wasn't spoken like to the general population. It was, she pulled me aside and told me that. Yeah.
So that went on the first time. Mm-hmm. And then you said later on, zombies came into play.
Yeah.
When was that?
I would say winter of 2020.
Oh.
Am I getting these dates right? 20 of the years right? That's not correct.
So winter of 2020 would be this last
yeah,
summer.
So it wasn't, it was winter, so 2018, sorry. Okay, let me review.
Yeah, no, you're
the
fine.
date line. So that means the Preparing a People conference was 2018, November.
Okay.
And then I was back here in March 2019. That's how it went.
Okay.
I apologize.
No, you're fine. What did she say about zombies and how that worked?
Right. So I don't know if you believe in the Bible, but basically from my understanding is like Jesus Christ, his number one miracle that he performed was casting out evil spirits. And the Bible also talks in Revelations about how when Christ or when Satan went against God, he was cast out to the earth, and it says to the earth. And so it was, from my understanding, she took that, people can be possessed, there's evil here for sure. And she said that people had died or their bodies were possessed by evil spirits. And that's what my definition is, or my understanding is, of the zombies.
Of how she was explaining it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Did she ever tell you how to get rid of those zombies, or did she practice that same way how you just explained it to me?
Yeah, no, she did. She had all this together. So that was March when I came back here for a girls' weekend.
Was that March of 2018?
It was, so Preparing a People was November, and it was the following March.
Okay.
So if it was 2018, 2019. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So how did she explain that to you?
Well, she explained that Satan was ramping up his powers, and their evil was just so pervasive in this world, and that it was her job. She was responsible for casting out these zombies, and that she needed help, and she needed all of our help. We each had something to bring to the table, and we needed to cast these people out. So,
what an interesting way to just get people to do your dirty work. She's testing out with this woman, just like she did with Melanie Gibb and probably her niece Melanie and Zulema, and April Raymond. Let me just see how much they'll buy of my BS. And if they're idiots, then we'll just hook, line, and sinker them and get them to help us get rid of these evil spirits, quote unquote. And this woman seems like she had more sense in her than the other ones who followed. Sorry, but I don't know why or how they got Melanie Gibb, her current husband, and Zulema to do and go along with as much as they did. But anyways, it's just interesting to see this woman come forward. And again, this is an older interview, and she's describing this conversation that Lori had with her. And you know, everything that we know about Lori now and how manipulative and all that she is. She's trying to pull her in and see how much she can get from this woman and how, faithful to their cause, quote unquote, she would be. But there is no real cause, and it's just to get rid of the children for monetary gain, for freedom, everything that the state is laying out there. Yeah, that exactly. Callie Karen says that is why they call it brainwashing. And that's the thing. Karen says Lori's family never thought Lori was the problem. Yeah, it's crazy. And it's all just going back to the family again. Lori only expressed certain new beliefs that she had with Summer, probably to test out the same thing. Like, will my sister buy it? Or was it because she knew her sister wouldn't buy it, so she didn't bother telling her about, the zombie aspect and that she believed she was a goddess? It's just very interesting to hear certain things. If Lori really believed these religious beliefs, she would have told those close to her, join me, follow me, I'm going to lead it with Chad. But she didn't, because she knew it was wrong.
It was like a spiritual casting out, just like Jesus Christ did. There was nothing physical to it, and it was all in good intent. Like, we were trying to help this world and trying to get rid of evil. That's what I thought we were doing.
So what did Lori see in you to bring you in that casting? Or what did you have that, because you just said everyone kind of had something, so what did you have, or what did she think you had?
Well, from my perspective, like, I'm a pretty spiritual person. I am in the scriptures a lot, and I have pretty intense faith with Jesus Christ. And I follow through with things. I get things done. Like, if I feel like he is asking me to do something, like, I want to do it. All in good faith, all like for the right, for truth. And I think, like, for me, she saw somebody who is outside of this Gilbert bubble or outside the Arizona bubble, somebody who's she could bring in. I'm a pretty strong personality, but I also have, like, I have not only the gift of faith, but I've had spiritual experiences, and I think she took that and manipulated it.
And she said the key word, manipulated it. It's just really interesting. And also thinking about something else that was reported this week that I find very interesting too, and I know you guys will, is I believe it was Gigi, who is on Long Crime. Well, she's been going on other channels too, but she stated that Lori is rapidly aging. Since this trial started, she said her hair is going more and more gray, and she literally is just rapidly aging. So I found that very interesting. I don't think it has anything to do with no Botox. I don't even know if she ever even had Botox. To me, she never really looked that smooth, like in the face and stuff, but it has been very clear and evident that, the beginning of this case, when they were in Hawaii, and then you compare to her now, apparently, she's just aging like no tomorrow. In this little note here, while I have it paused, is from the special agent Steve Daniels, the FBI agent who was at the crime scene in the where they were at the burial site, and they're talking about Tylee's burial site, and Summer, Lori's sister, is crying as the photos are shown. She's looking down and her eyes are closed. Lori is looking down. The next photo is a close-up view of the pieces identified as Tylee. Steve Daniels says you can see the bigger bones sticking out of the ground. He says her remains were melted together in the ground. Now a photo of a mass of a human dismembered melted, and a green bucket with the pair of a skull in it. It took a while for us as investigators to figure out what happened here. We want to show how these remains were buried so that we can show the story of what happened there, Daniel says. Lori still looks down while taking notes. The next photo is Tylee's skull next to a melted bucket. Steve said the team tried to lift the remains out of the ground, but they fell apart. They were able to collect them and put them in the body bag. Now, it's important to go through this information, and it's important for the jury to see the autopsy photos, even though the audience in the courtroom were not shown them, and obviously the public has not been shown them. Although Nate Eaton says you can go to the courthouse and request any of the documents that you need and want. Either way, it's important that the jury sees it because it needs to be shown without a shadow of a doubt, in my opinion. I know you guys will agree that these children didn't die from any other means besides somebody else's hand. So it wasn't an accident, it's just, even though we don't have the cause of death for Tylee and we don't know exactly why GHB showed up in JJ's toxicology report, we can conclude that this didn't happen to them because it was an accident. And that's, important for the jury to see, even though the public hasn't been shown it and the audience in the courtroom wasn't shown all of it either. So let me just go on with this for a few more minutes, guys, and then we'll conclude. I think we're only going to go for like 4 more minutes, and then that'll be the conclusion for the day. And then all week long, of course, I'll be taking notes and going through stuff and collecting stuff for the next week's review. I'm really curious what the defense will present. Some people are even speculating that they might not even have like an argument or much of a defense. We'll have to wait and see, how are they going to counteract everything? They tried to cross-examine the doctor pathologist about the way that JJ passed, and that fell apart, in my opinion. We played that clip earlier in the stream too, in case you guys missed it.
So did you discuss those experiences with her prior to her asking you to be part of this?
Pulling me. So it wasn't like an official, she asked me to be a part of it. She just kind of, hey, I've got some things. She had asked me about like, had I had my baptism, of course I had like a physical baptism in my church. She also asked if I had a spiritual baptism, a baptism by fire in the Holy Ghost. That's explained in the New Testament as well. I said, I'm not sure, but I have had some spiritual experiences. And she did ask me to elaborate a little bit on kind of my life journey and what has happened in my life. So I shared with her a little bit. I shared with her some of the things that happened, but some of it I hold very secret and I don't discuss those things. But yeah, I did share. So I think she knew some of it for sure. Yeah.
On the castings, can you walk us through on how those happen?
Yes.
Or did she always direct them?
Yes.
Okay, can you walk us through on how those worked? And
so she's she's a multiple person who has come forward saying that Lori conducted these castings. She gave the directions. She said who was in need of this spiritual cast out. So they're very much putting all that on Lori, which is good, because she's being charged with conspiracy. So all this is kind of corroborated information that leans towards the fact that Lori had a very, very active role in everything. And thank you so much, Pizza Chemist, for gifting memberships, and Shay Benet, and for the new members who have joined. And for those who sent super stickers, thank you so much, Karen, and everyone else who has just hit like and been here to listen and talk. I really appreciate it, guys.
Sure. So I was only there once in person because I was only there. So I've seen Lori 4 times ever.
Okay.
It was that Preparing People conference in November, and then in March when I came out for the girls' weekend. And then after I moved here, I saw her 2 other times. I saw her at a lunch. She was not even sitting by me, but she was a few tables down. And then I saw her once at her house after that. She invited me over with a bunch of other women, and we just sat there and talked and ate. And I had questions for her about what had happened with her husband, because that's pretty mind blowing. And so I've only seen her those 4 times. The weekend of March, when we were there for that girls' weekend, that was the first time we did. She explained the casting out things. And she asked us each to, like, it's kind of like we got in a circle, and she asked each of us to be part of that prayer or say something to help cast out. And so we each took a turn saying something, like, and sometimes calling on elements, because we each have like different gifts. Just like you're really good at basketball and you might be really good at hockey, right?
Calling on elements. And this just reminds me of Zulema being told that she was, able to, like, something about fire and stuff was her power or something. It's like, it just reminds me very much, like, have you guys ever watched Captain Planet back in the day? Any Captain Planet fans in here?
The same thing applies spiritually too. We can have different spiritual gifts. And so she asked, like, for me to be in charge of water and to use those elements and ask for water. And for me, that meant like using water, calling down water. God used water to help form this world, and calling down that water and using water to help, like, cleanse, because it's a very cleansing agent. There's a lot of power in water too. So basically, I thought we were just casting out, getting rid of those zombies or evil spirits, the people who are possessed, so that we could cleanse them out. And my specialty, or her ask of me, was to use that water element.
Okay. The first time you did it, who was that? Who were you doing a casting on?
Okay, can I back up real quick?
Yeah.
So when you guys were in a circle, were you holding hands? Were you just shoulder to shoulder?
I don't think we were holding hands. From my memory, I think we were just, I can't even remember if we were standing or sitting. Just kind of in a casuals. I'm so sorry, I don't
You're
remember.
okay. And was Lori in that circle, or was she somewhere else?
No, she was there.
Do you remember who was there?
Yes, I do. So Lori, and I don't remember the order, but Lori was there, Zulema was there, Melanie Gibb was there, Christina was there, Nicole was there, and myself. And I think that's it. 6. Is that right? That sounds right to me.
And then just kind of walk us through what you would say. Like if it got to your turn, what you would say to cast out these evil spirits.
Well, it's very similar to what we're taught in the Bible. So in the name of Jesus Christ, I ask for, and you can ask for things when you pray. I ask for the element of water to come, water in the heavens above and the earth beneath. That's in the Exodus, to come and cleanse. And I can't remember, you asked who we specifically targeted. I know she was very concerned about her husband, Charles. Charles, is that his name?
Yep.
And that's all we need to hear there. Charles. How convenient. Let me just play the last few clips that I edited together, and it'll close out with silent images of Lori from before the murders next to her after. So then we'll just play that. I'll pull up some of your guys' comments in chat, and that'll be everything, okay? So bear with me while I just pull up that video file and get to the right minute mark. And thank you all for being here, guys. I really appreciate you guys being here. It's only like 2 minutes, so I'll just end out with that in the outro. So thank you all so much for being here. Like I said, I hope you have a great week coming up. I'll be taking notes, and we can meet back here and do another review next week.
Welcome to ATS News.
In the death of her new husband, Chad Daybell's former wife. She died in her sleep in October.
Are you defending Lori because she's your daughter and she's your sister? Or are you defending her because you really think that she did nothing wrong?
We really think that she did nothing wrong. She's had some bad judgment. She's married a few men that we didn't care for.
She'll be the first to say that
Yeah,
she's made a lot of mistakes and she's paid high prices for those mistakes.
So what is the scenario that Tylee and JJ are still alive?
Well, to us, we believe they are because we know Lori. And we have seen her dedication.
Are they in a bunker somewhere? Are they with friends? Where do you think they are?
We don't know. We wish we knew. We don't know. But we also don't know what Lori has been through. She was being threatened. She was being followed.
Who was threatening her?
Well, Kay was threatening her.
And her brothers. They were very upset about Charles's death. There was a lot of threats made to Lori.
Do you think she's in a cult?
No.
No.
No. No. We don't.
But Lori is now married to Chad Daybell, an author of Doomsday novels with a cult-like following in the prepper world.
They look at Chad like he's some sort of messiah.
I don't know Chad very well. I've only met him one time. I've never heard anything about him self-proclaiming to be a prophet or anything else of that nature or trying to get people to follow him.
We can't see Lori blindly following anybody. Can you? No, we can't see it.
You don't think that Chad brainwashed her?
No, he couldn't do it. It's not possible.
These two say they think Lori really believes she is protecting her children, but they say they wish she would bring them forward.
It's been devastating not to see Tylee and JJ in such a long time. We love them so much. And it's been devastating not to see Lori.
Is there any part of the dark recesses of your minds that say, maybe she cracked and maybe this is not going to end up well?
We have gone through those scenarios probably 100 times.
If something has happened to those children, it is not by her doing. And it's not by her permission.
She couldn't crack enough to do harm to her children.
Here's some other interesting clips from the case and from everything that we've gathered thus far.
I want her to get help.
Yeah.
She's my wife. I love her to death. Something's going on.
Okay.
And if she wants me gone, fine. I'll do all that stuff. I just don't want her hurt.
Okay.
I just don't want her hurt. I don't want to hurt anybody else.
What if she poses a threat to your children? I don't know what she's going to do with them.
I'm Alex, and I'm going to be Looney Tunes.
I asked Al at one point, your brother, if I wanted to know, like where he was, and he said I did not want to know, and that he could not be found. So what does that mean?
I don't know why he would say that, but it's the same story. Like I don't even want Al to know. I don't want anybody to know, so that nobody has to be worried about it. I mean, nobody has to be questioned about it, so he can be safe.
And who said this to you? Is that what Lori said, that Tylee had to be free?
Correct.
Okay. Did she say where she was staying, where Tylee was actually staying?
When I tried to ask her what she meant by that, she lifted her hand and put it up to my face and said, "Don't ask."
I begged her to go to the doctor because her heart was failing her. She was physically falling apart. There's no way, Logan, I should ever come up with this.
3 weeks before Tammy dies, he said to me, and he was kind of in this frustrated voice, "My plan can't move forward until Tammy's dead."
They were saying that Tammy had become a zombie.
She believed in the end of the world and that everyone was going to die, and she was preparing for it. She would say things about the end of the world and about driving off a cliff with the kids. She worked in the primary, and she was so good with all the kids. It just seems like she kind of lost it.
Thanks again, everybody who donated and everyone who's commenting in chat. I'll pull up your comments and you guys have a great day.